You are listening to selfdiscoveryradio.com with an orchard of wisdom just ready for your picking, filled with illuminating, inspiring stories. Do check out the community and the discovery stores. We are here for you. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Choose Positive Living. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Carolin Hauser-Carson. Blossom, 7 Steps to Sexual Healing. And also, are they after the Me Too? What comes next? Finding your voice just isn't enough. The Me Too movement is wonderful. It's something that denounces the sexual harasser, which is absolutely fantastic. But what does it mean for relationships? What does it mean for blossoming sexual healing or sexual relationships? And so we're going to discover that today. Statistics show that 1 in 4 women will be sexually abused or assaulted in their lifetime, which is an average up to 4 times more likely to develop depression, suicidal thoughts, post-traumatic stress, drug addiction, alcohol, eating disorders, relationship problems, and many, many more. So how do we avoid this? And does the Me Too movement actually, is that a step in the right direction? And how do we heal from that? Because I do know that it's very, very hard to heal from something like that once you have been exposed to it. And no amount of mindset is going to do it. It's really a heart, soul, spirit thing. And a lot of the time, anybody that has been sexually abused or in any sort of way, there is that blame game, and it's not necessarily blame on the other person. It's always, what did I do to invite it? And we blame ourselves first before we go anywhere else. So let's dive right into the conversation and see how we can have some sexual healing. We need that song in the background, don't we?
A lot of people that interview me, they play that song. Yes.
Welcome to the show, love. And it's this is a topic that never goes away, and it's sad that we still have to talk about it, but we do.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So do you think the Me Too movement right now is part of that sexual healing?
I do think so, because I published my book actually 6 years ago. And I remember, reaching out and trying to get book signings and going to getting booked on the radio. And nobody really wanted to. People were saying, oh, yeah, such important work. And, men would come up to me and say, oh, my God, yeah, my wife needs this, and my sister and my mother. But really engaging with me or inviting me or letting me speak publicly, no way.
Mm-hmm. So, it's still a taboo subject.
Yeah. So and since October last year, it's completely changed. Now everybody wants to have me and talk to me.
Well, so, you have to wait for society to catch up and be ready, because it is a sensitive topic. People who have had any form of sexual harassment or abuse, it is something that there is a stigma to it. There is that thing that you did invite it, you did something wrong. And of course, immediately society is going to go to the way you dress, the way you approach. There is never any accountability. And this isn't male bashing. This is just that males have not been taught the boundaries or how to respect women, or how far is too far. And I think what we're seeing now, we're seeing so many celebrities, and of course they're, led that way, that bigger voice to saying, enough is enough. We're not going to take this anymore. So it's given permission to women to say, yes, I was there. I'm being empowered by other women's voices. I don't need to hide anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the permission has always been there. We just didn't realize it.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Right. Yes. So now we're waking up to actually seeing that we do have choices, and that's a good thing. And like you said, it's really about, I'm very much about not pointing the fingers and so forth, but really looking like, okay, how can we heal from this as a society? Because I think, my suspicion is in many cases, actually, there might be men who had no clue that they, made love to somebody who didn't want to.
Exactly.
For example.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think a lot of this, no means yes. Oh, she's resisting, that just means she wants it more. And this is something that they've been brought up with. They haven't been taught the respect of women or those boundaries. So we can't put the blame all there. We have to look at society in a whole. Movies and other people of importance out there that have led that way and said it's okay to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways, when we are heard, when we put up our boundaries, the men need to be persistent with their love to win us back. So, I know in my relationships, when I've said no, sometimes I was just hurt and I really needed the person to be persistent. So there is some truth in, sometimes we do say no when actually we're hurt, and we just really need that, the persistence of not of like sexual pursuit,
Yes.
but of the love and the, you know, the
Yes.
attention of the
Yes.
male to help us to surrender and open up and soften again. I
It's
think
the
there's
wooing, you know, excuse the expression, but I use this a
exactly.
lot, but it's the wooing before screwing. And, you know, and it seems to very much like it was the screwing, forget about the wooing. And it's like a woman likes to be pursued. You know, we like
Yes.
that dance before the intimacy, because it makes the intimacy so much more meaningful. And yet we are seeing so much, especially amongst the younger people, have as many sexual partners as you want and don't get involved. And that seems to be a trend that's happening. But really, as human beings, we want to be involved, don't we? We want a relationship.
Yeah. So for me, you know, being sexually whole and healthy doesn't mean that you can just have sex with anybody and like, you know, be like totally detached and so forth. It really means that you are in yourself whole. And I know for myself, I believe that I can have the deepest intimacy with one person. And when you are in that kind of intimacy, right, you have to be willing that all your stuff can come up, and it has to be safe, right? So
Yes.
um that commitment to that one relationship, you know, whether it's a marriage or not a marriage, that can actually allow somebody to bring that stuff to the surface even, right? And I think when we just have, you know, when we don't engage or engage on a more superficial level, it lets us hide more or keep our shadows hidden a little more. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That avoidance is saying something, isn't it? You know, it's
yeah,
either you're not trusting a relationship or you're not trusting yourself in a relationship, or maybe you've been wounded and you don't want to share yourself anymore. And
yeah,
so, you know, and there's many emotions that we go through relationships, but no matter what, we have to deal with it. You know, whether
hmm,
if we have been hurt or if we have been slighted, if we, you know, if we've trusted someone that betrayed that trust, we have to look at, you know, the why, the heal, go through the process. You can't deny it, and you can't turn around with it, well, all men are alike or all women are alike and I'm never going to be in a relationship again, because you're still carrying that pain with you.
yeah. I mean, I believe that one of the biggest pleasures, or you know, the greatest pleasures of being human is actually being able to experience love. And part of, to me, sex is just a form of experiencing your physical love for each other, right, in an
Mm-hmm.
ideal sense. And I think that has really gotten lost,
Yes.
you know, in many
Yeah.
ways, right?
Yeah.
And part of it is really that what we're finding now, there's, you know, a lot of talk coming up about porn addictions and so forth, that really there we have a dopamine cycle in the brain that's highly, or dopamine is highly addictive, and it gets
Mm-hmm.
stimulated by um expecting thrill or newer
Yeah.
things, and then you need more and more and more. So it has nothing to do with love or connection
I know.
anymore. It really has to do with satisfying this brain chemistry that's started, you know. And because our society is so over sexualized, it gets set
Mm-hmm.
up really young, and then you just need more and more and more, and you can't feel excited if it's not over the top. And so
Yeah.
part of it is really learning about your brain chemistry and learning to work with this, especially with trauma also. So
Most certainly. I did a show on sexual trafficking and sexual abuse, and I was astonished to hear it's $150 billion industry worldwide a year. Now, if that isn't an addiction, if that isn't a mental problem, then I don't know what is. If we're seeing that much sexual trade going on at that value, then it's, as you said, you know, that it's just another form of drug, isn't it?
yeah, it's just a substitute for what we're really like. There's a
Mm,
hole, right? And we're like trying to fill it, and we won't fill it until we really, you know, the real fulfillment comes from you being yourself and living your purpose and creating something meaningful in life and having real connections. And no alcohol, no chocolate, no food, no
yeah.
shopping, no anything
Yes.
will substitute for
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
No, you know, no sex addiction or just sex.
And
Yeah.
no external stimulation is going to support the internal journey you have to take, because you know, love outside starts inside, and that love of self, love of life, love of meaningful purpose is what's going to exude out and invite people on that same vibration. But if you're constantly chasing love or chasing meaning, and you're not willing to go inside and take that self-discovery, you're constantly going to be chasing your tail, and very easy then to fall into those habits or addictions, isn't it? Because you're looking for something else to fulfill you.
Yeah, and you
But the
can never find
fulfillment is
it.
you. No, you
Yeah.
can't. It's not an external job. It is an internal job.
Yes. And so a lot of people, to them it might sound so philosophical, abstract, or anything. So I like to take trauma healing out of the realm of scary, out of the realm of emotionalism, out of the realm of psychoanalytical or even mentalizing or anything like that. Because in my experience and in my world, um, I look at things through a lens of the energetic. So meaning, we are energetic beings. We are everything that exists is energy, and we are energy.
Yeah.
And our bodies run of energy. And we can either vibrate at a higher vibration or at a lower vibration. When we vibrate at a lower vibration, we feel depressed and angry and sluggish, and things aren't working, and so forth. And so when trauma happens, it's like you have been given a huge block of negativity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that is a challenge, but it is also a gift, because when we look at an alchemical process, they believe that they needed to have lead to turn lead into gold.
Yeah.
Right. And so in our own transformation, the negativity that we have is actually the lead that we have been given,
Mm-hmm.
that we can transform into gold. So in some ways, the bigger the negativity you've been given, the greater the opportunity for the more gold, basically, because you have more negativity, you also have more material that can be transformed.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I teach people is really to use their body as a transmutation device.
Yes.
The body is the thing that turns the lead into gold.
Mm. And a lot of people get caught in the why me.
Yeah.
This has happened, I'm stuck in the drama. For some people, it actually becomes their crutch, the
Yes.
sympathy thing. For
Yeah.
some people, they're
I
just
was
so
stuck there for a long time.
Yeah, we've all been, we don't teach what we teach without having gone through it, right? Those are the best teachers. I've been there. But, we get stuck in it, the why me, then there's the persecution of self, and then, blame from other people. But, all of these processes are quite natural, and you've got to go through it. But what comes out of it is that you look back and go, oh my God, I didn't realize how strong I was, how courageous I was, what I've learned from this, how much I value myself now. But you have to be willing to step away from the trauma and go through the process. And in that recovery, you become such a different person. And then it means that anything else that you're going to face in life, you've really got the tools and you've got that strength to face it, because there's always going to be something you've got to face.
Yeah. So, you can look at it like there's different levels in life that we can reach or not reach. And they're like literally like a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes energy and becoming somebody different to get to the next level. You can't be the same person. You have to become somebody different to end up in the next level.
Yes.
And so the pain is actually what helps us, even though it doesn't feel good, and when we're in it and when we're stuck in it, it's hard to see that. But the truth is that the pain ultimately, or the thing that has impacted us negatively, is usually the fuel that will help us get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this is the journey of life. It's not about the destination. Everybody's rushing over to get over there. And, they're not paying attention to the surroundings along the way. And
Yeah.
you never know what is a tap on the shoulder. Go this way. This will benefit you. Meet this person. If you're always in a hurry, you're going to miss those signs. You're going to miss those people. They're part of your healing. They're part of your learning. Or maybe part of your teaching.
Yeah. And I mean, the universe is, does things most efficiently. So if for you, if you have a plan in this lifetime, when we just talk about energy, so let's say, you're vibrating at below 200, which is really not life sustaining, it's below courage. And your goal in this lifetime is to get up to, 300, where you really feel empowered and do stuff in the world. And the universe is in support of you. The universe knows best and is most efficient, and might have you go through an impact like that, because that's the fastest way it knows to help you catapult
propel forward.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
universe is always as efficient as it can be. It's most efficient.
Well, the thing about the universe is that all it knows is about creation. Anything dies, something new comes out of it. It doesn't know right or wrong. It just knows constantly life has to come out of something. So when something happens in our life and it brings about a death of something, a
Mm-hmm.
situation, a person, or something dead within you, all that means is that there is a chance of a new birth. And I think if we change our perception of how we look at things, because
Yes.
life happens, shoot happens, and it's like sometimes you don't like the dun that's on you, but it's okay. What am I learning about this? Well, this dun, actually, you can grow a lot of fruitful things from it. But
Yes.
we have to change our attitude into things. And I know it's hard when you've been victimized, but it's always, what good can come from it, and
Yeah.
stepping into that vibration.
And it's hard because when you have been victimized, your vibration literally drops. So when you're vibrating at, let's say, 20 or 30 or 50, which is all around shame and guilt, you're literally only capable of thinking thoughts that are connected with blame and shame and finding fault and self-destruction. Because, and you were talking, no mindset work can change this.
Yeah.
Because your mindset is actually not yours. You're vibrating at a certain frequency, and because you're capable only of resonating with a certain certain thought patterns that
Yeah.
are universally available. So there's different radio stations playing, basically,
Yes.
right, at any energy frequency level. And when you're low, then that's the radio station you're tuned in. They're not even your own thoughts. They're not even your own mindset.
No.
So we don't have power over, what you were saying, around what's going on around us or people around us. But what we do have power is what level our cells and our body and our being vibrates at.
Yeah.
And so the fastest way to change your mindset is to get yourself in a bit different vibrational frequency, because then you think completely different thoughts. You become a different person. Like
you have to step out of thought, don't you? I mean, it's, always saying that we the head is just one cylinder in a vehicle, and we've got the soul, we've got the heart, we've got the spirit, you've got the body, and everything needs to be engaged with each other.
And the head is actually, our head is actually not producing the thoughts. Our head is just a receiving station.
Yes.
Right? We think we create these thoughts, and I think this. It's like, no, you're just resonating with that kind of thinking because you're at a certain level. And so any emotional imprint is responsible for thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts. Right. So why would we then focus on trying to control the thoughts or work with the thoughts when we can just go directly to the emotional imprint, learn how to, neutralize it, basically, and then all these thoughts are gone. You don't think like that anymore. It's you literally are like a different person.
I call it the knowingness. Actually, it's like that gut feeling. Why do you know what you know? And you that the universal knowledge that comes into you that resonates with the heart, and the heart goes, yes, I resonate with this, and goes into the spirit interaction, and then the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it, because this is a database, hard drive and programming. And this programming is how much data is in there. So much more that we would burst if we had to have it all accessible. But the vibration, the universal vibration, knows you need this knowledge right now to apply, right? And if we get out of our heads and stop trying to analyze what we know or control what we know, and trust the other cylinders, we will actually know what we need to know when we need to know it.
Yeah. And so specifically for trauma survivors, what happens with the brain is that, what you're talking about is really being able to have access to your higher faculties, so your frontal cortex and the higher part of the brain. And when trauma happens to a brain, it gets set into a high alert. And what that means is that from that point on, you're more prone to basically just react from your instinctual brain. So information comes into your senses and it goes into your brainstem at the bottom of your brain. And instead of it getting through there and, filtered onto the higher parts of your brain, it just stops there, and the decision making basically takes place in your reptile brain. You're really just making decisions based on survival, not on thriving. So for trauma survivors, sexual or other, it is really important that you learn what you can do to basically help your brain flip that switch back, so that your reptilian brain is not in charge all the time.
Yeah, and of course, especially if you're talking about somebody that has in any form or way been sexually abused, and that sexual abuse doesn't have to be rape. It just is, you place trust in someone, and that trust was betrayed, and numerous amounts, and very sad to say that, of how many children are abused by family members, which is quite horrific. And there's a process that they have to go to, because obviously that back, the hairs on the back of the neck,
Yeah.
anytime somebody wants to make that, they want a relationship, but those memories come back, those triggers come back, and they immediately go into the flight or fight mode, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's so hard for them to give somebody their vulnerability or their trust again. And it doesn't matter how they intellectualize it. Oh, that happened to me before, this person's not going to do it. It is that. So what do people do when they have that trigger? Is there a process they can do when they go beyond it?
Yeah. So first we have to understand that it's so deeply ingrained in our physiology and biology that there's nothing we can do with, our conscious mind or our willpower. It goes out the window, because this is connected to our survival, and it will just take over. And so learning to be in your body and using your body is the most critical step. And learning to be in your body and be present with what is really happening inside of your body. And that can be a little tricky for people, because, as you probably know, when people have experienced trauma, they're not quite in their body. So part of what my book teaches, is to gently get back into your body and start. It's like going to the gym and start strengthening the muscle of, okay, this is what it feels like to actually be in my body. This is what it feels like to hear my intuition. And then this is what it would feel like to actually integrate and help my brain. So going with, the lead that I were talking about before. So when you're triggered, we do actually have physical sensations. And what most of us do is like we spin out, we react, we suppress, we do something, we reach for the cigarette or whatever. And instead of doing that, to learn to actually just feel, whether it's a lump in your stomach or a cramp in your neck or, shaking, to like be literally present to the physical sensation in your body. And to let it run its course, and just to put your attention on it. Sometimes I also give the picture of, okay, imagine that the trauma was like an energy that froze your system. And so you have all these different frozen blocks within your body. And when you're triggered, it's basically just your body saying, oh, look, here is a frozen piece.
Yeah.
And then we can put our attention on it. And by putting our attention on it, it thaws out. It becomes water. It can go into our body. It can be metabolized. It can be transformed. It can become part of us, and it dissipates.
Yes, that's a really good point, actually. It's kind of, wrapping yourself off of it in liquid heat to freeze, because it is, we talk about, I was frozen in the moment.
Yeah.
I was frozen in the fear, and I know that I should have done this, but why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And you're frozen. You can't. But then, as you said, you can thaw out.
Yeah.
And it's, I think sometimes it's even stepping out there and giving yourself a loving embrace. I know it's hard, but we have to be there with stepping into our own nurturing in a way, don't we?
Yeah.
And to trust again is always very, very hard. And especially in a society where there has been this impression that women don't have a say, women don't have power. And it's definitely a fact, that has been the case in the workplace and everywhere else. But women are taking back their empowerment right now. And it's not about women becoming more powerful than men. It's about finding that balance and that understanding and communication between each other, so that misunderstandings don't lead to something that's going to lead to trauma. And there is a different dialogue out there, but I know what's happening a lot with people is like, but I want to date and I want to step into my sensuality, but am I sending the wrong message? As a woman of empowerment, now should I restrain? And a guy says, I really want to meet this girl. She's really hot, but should I not be thinking that way because of the Me Too movement? What is the language now that people should be using in a way that is still empowering for both parties and not treading on any toes?
Yeah. So feminine power looks very different than masculine power. And I think part of really being really strong in your feminine has to do with you really being connected to yourself and your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, and also learning about feminine and masculine energy and your own energy,
Yeah.
because yes, you can be sending the wrong, I mean, actually a lot of people who have been sexually abused, their energy is all over the place and can feel like, oh, she wants something from me. It can be really misinterpreted because you don't actually own your sexuality is not in your body anymore. It's kind of floating all around you, and it can be felt by other people like you're touching them, or you're, so
Yes.
the more you work on really bringing your energy back and integrating it, the more you can really also turn it on and turn it off, right? I can be with men and I can sense that they really are attracted to me, and I don't have to be scared with it. I can play with it, and I can totally feel safe and know where I'm standing, basically, because I know my energy, and I know where my heart is. And at the same time, so when you're dating, to really learn to communicate in a feminine way, and it's very different than what we're used to, has a lot to do with just communicating feelings and really what's right for us. And this is another point. So many times we don't actually say what we want and what's right for us. Men are really, so in my journey, I've been learning about men, and I had lots of misunderstandings, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm very blessed to be married to a very good husband. Now it took a while,
Yes.
but what I'm
Well
learning
worth
about men,
waiting for, right? Yes.
yeah, it took 20 years.
Mm.
But what I'm learning is that he really wants to please me, and he wants to know.
Yes.
And we get in trouble. We only get in trouble when I don't say what I want, when I'm kind of like talking around the bush and
Assuming, or that he knows what you
assuming,
want.
and
Yeah.
then he gets really confused. So then he gets really mad because he's like, what do you want from me? Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you just say what you want? So men actually want to please us. They want to make us
Mm-hmm.
happy, and they need us to be clear. And so we need to know what we want. We need to not be afraid to say it and ask for it. Right? We need to stop being manipulative and thinking, oh, we
Yeah.
can't have it unless, like,
Yeah.
like, for example, maybe I need help with the kids tomorrow, and then a manipulative way to ask would be, oh, are you doing anything tomorrow? Are you possibly in this area? Instead of saying, hey, I need help with the kids. Can you pick them up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yes, and I think it's that way. I mean, especially with my age group, it was hard to ask directly, because
Yeah.
there was very much that submissiveness. I
Yeah.
always felt I'm a woman of service. That is something I live for. But what I had become was a woman of servitude.
Yeah.
And become a servant to being a woman and what was expected of me as a wife, as a mother, at the sacrifice of myself.
Yeah.
And I think especially for the older generation, that permission to now be who you are and to understand the empowerment of it takes a little longer, where I think
Mhm.
the younger generation, I kind of in a lot of ways have stepped into that already. And I think this is the
Mhm.
reason why we are being able to see this movement at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And it's all about learning, and really learning that um, men have evolved, and men are very different than what we think and what our mothers thought.
Mm-hmm.
I really grew up with a picture of men are kind of animals.
Yeah.
It's not it's not true. you know and often, in when real sexual abuse, I mean, traumatizing sexual abuse really happens, oftentimes it has nothing to do with sex. It actually has a lot to do with personal power, and the person who is doing it, feeling, very low about themselves and having very
Yes.
low self-esteem, and they're just trying to somehow regain, some kind of power.
Yeah, I remember watching a documentary of a woman who had been quite badly raped by someone. She met him face to face in jail. And he said, "La, I have to tell you, this is nothing to the way you dressed or you looked or if you came on to me or not. This was nothing to do with sex. This was purely to do with power. And the power I had over you is what gave me the kick. You could have been anybody." And I think that's what people, because women immediately go into, what did I do wrong? And especially when you're dealing with somebody at that extreme, as you said, it's not anything to do with you. It's just that need they need to have as a control and power over someone.
Yeah. And so I think that's a big, there's so many misunderstandings about what men are and what women are. And so right now I'm excited because I'm hoping that we can really use this time to learn about each other
Yeah.
and learn about our differences, because I believe that we're actually the strongest when we're together, right?
Yes.
As men and women, and in healthy ways, that, we're not strong as women alone. We're not strong as men alone, but together we can really create some things.
And the thing is, we in the 60s, burn your bra, women's rights. And I think, why burn your bra? The things are just flapping in the wind now. The bra there is there for a reason. And it isn't about, and then women became emasculated, dressing like men, to be powerful like men. And it's like, that isn't women's lib. What we're looking at is the liberation of women is for them to have an equal voice, obviously equal payment and equal rights to something, not just it's a man's world or that's the women's world. If a woman is great at engineering and welding, that's her right to follow that path and not say, no, it's just a man's world. So I think we got off track of what women's lib was meant to be about. And there was a lot of confusion for a lot of time. And I think what we're seeing now, and we see it in the stars that stand up in their inner and outer beauty. And, especially if you see it amongst women that are in their 60s. I am still beautiful, I am still central, and I am a woman, and I have not given you permission to abuse me. If you wish to interact with me, rise up to my vibrational level, and now we have a communication. And I think it's, it's given people an understanding that it's about the empowerment is in you. To be you, and that is what's exciting, and I think, as you said, it gives the men that bar. Oh, if I really, this woman is empowered, she is just wonderful, I love who she is, I can't drag her down, I need to rise up to meet her at that level. And the same with a guy.
And like you said, boundaries don't come from like saying out loud, hey, I don't want this anymore. It means to know that, hey, I don't want this anymore, and therefore I'm not putting myself in certain situations. I'm not surrounding myself with certain people. When I feel like a thing isn't going my way, I just leave the situation. Right? It's not about fighting and standing up. And it's much more subtle and really just taking care of yourself.
But
and
boundaries.
Being okay with not for no explanation other than, oh, this doesn't feel right to me right now. Right? We think we have to explain and justify and all these things, and we actually don't.
Yeah, and the thing about boundaries, I think, is so important because we need them in every aspect of our life. And that boundary is, I'm resonating here at this frequency. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I'm in my truth. This is where I am most beneficial to society. And if somebody will come along and want to drag you down or shatter that frequency, and it's that, no, that's the needle across the record, and I'm not interested in that. Remove yourself or remove that person from your thing, and that is okay to do. You see, we're not talking about borders. This is the border, you can't cross the border. We're talking about that boundary of that is unacceptable behavior to me, unacceptable vibration.
It has to do with what you're willing to tolerate in your space.
Right? Yes, and you've got to know that you've got to establish that for yourself. Nobody else can tell you that must be your boundary. You've got to know where that lies.
And we've gotten really good at tolerating, a bunch of stuff, not just around, sexuality, but we've allowed a lot of tolerations around food and how we're treated, and so there's a lot of work to do to see, like, why am I really tolerating this? And mostly it's because we think we have to, otherwise we won't survive. And it's not, we're not really, most of us are really beyond the level of just pure survival at this point.
I don't think people look back to understand where we're going forward. Look back at the women's right to vote, or the women's right to enter medical profession, or the women's right just to be able to work generally. Like teachers couldn't get married. They would have to leave the profession. We have come so far. And what we should be doing is celebrating how far we are, because the further we go in the empowerment of us as a women, the better the relationship we're going to have with men. Because, as you said, men now know how to treat a woman. Okay, that's the level she wants to be treated on. If I wish to interact with her, that's where I need to be. They know now what they need to do. And they want that conversation. They want that interaction. But it was so off-scaled before, the expectation. People didn't know where we are. Look how far we've come. Yes, we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, evolution goes slow.
Where we are. But don't you find we go in spits and spats, and kind of the Me Too movement right now, and this realization and this intolerance to the sexual innuendos and the assumption, that you're going to put out for a role, or whatever the case is, for a job, or that it's that you should, just because he is who he is. Those type of things are changing now, because it's saying to people, no, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to. And at the same time,
women,
though, like if you really want that role and you would be fine with putting out, there's nothing wrong with it either.
Right. That has to be, not because you have to. It
you have
has
a choice.
to be. Yeah, exactly. You're hot. Okay, let's, but that's, again, it's got to come from the right place, though. Because, that there are many women who are very sexually liberated, and they're very comfortable in their skin, in their sensuality, but they're making those choices because it's not driven by an expectation.
I have to, otherwise I'm not.
Right. It is, I want to, and that's their empowerment, good for them. But it's the people who feel I have to, that is, no, you don't.
Yeah. It's really important to learn that really, we have everything within, that we are truly responsible for our creations, right? So that means we do actually have power, and we have the power to say no, we have the power to choose, we have the power. We might not have realized it until now, but in truth we actually do. And so with that power comes responsibility also. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, and so sometimes it's easier to stay stuck in kind of like more victim mentality of, this happened to me, and there's nothing I can do about it, and and therefore I'm powerless. I'm just powerless.
And as I said, some people stay there because the attention they get, or the unwillingness to move forward. It's like
also you don't expect, like if you're a little bug that's turned over on your back, nobody expects anything from you. Right? You don't expect it to really contribute, or right, you're kind of left alone. Whereas when you're like really able and functioning, people expect things of you. I think.
But you've also hit on the thing of the responsibility, and I think people are always kind of trying to put blame on someone else. And the responsibility we have is to be the most awesome person we possibly can be, right? And that isn't somebody else to fix, or somebody else to do for you. They can guide you, enable you, mentor you, share tools with you. That's part of your toolkit. But ultimately, if you're unhappy in your life, it's up to you to make the choice to seek out your happiness. If you feel that you've got a low value, well, then it's up to you to raise that value. What are you going to do? Because this is what self-discovery in your journey of life is all about. It's about rising up. One of my favorite songs, what's the name? Andrea Day, Rise Up. And it's not about pitchforks or guns. It's about raising up that vibration of togetherness, sisterhood, brotherhood, community, humanity. And the responsibility is bring your instrument to the table, finely tuned. And it's
play.
Not,
come and play. Maybe you're still out of tune. It doesn't matter. We'll help you. Come.
Yeah, exactly. We'll help you get in tune. Yeah, exactly. And you've got to participate in your own life. And so many people abstain because they wish to play the blame game. It's everybody else's fault. And that way I don't need to take any responsibility. But
the reason why people think they don't want to take responsibility is because then they have to admit that they did it, and that's, you said it so beautifully, that's not the responsibility. Of course, maybe, you couldn't, maybe, you shouldn't have gone somewhere or something, but looking back never helps, right? So taking responsibility doesn't mean that you brought this on yourself or you did something to deserve this. No, the responsibility for you now is to be the best person you can be, and it's always the responsibility.
And there's always something to learn from something. It's a life lesson, and it might have been a tough one. And, for some people you do, like, oh, gosh, that was really rough. Are they going to recover from that? And then you hear of other stories and you go, my God, they recovered from that? Look where they are now. And that's the choice we have to make, is what kind of person do we wish to be? How far do we wish to rise? Are we going to take, I've had some of the most incredible stories on here of what people have gone through. And you think, how did they ever get over that? And yet they did. And through that, they are now an inspiration and an invitation to someone else, because their story is just shown where they were trapped in no choice, but then they made the choice to find a way out and live in their beautiful vibration now, which is resonating in such truth and love. That was a hard journey. And by them sharing it is enabling the listener to understand, yes, they can themselves, but maybe these are a few tools that will get me there.
Yeah. And so for me, the tools were really learning that it has to do with me and my body. So for me, actually, 5 years ago, I ended up with chronic fatigue and adrenal burnout with a 16 months old and a 5-year-old child at home. My ex-husband working, because he was the only. We live in Santa Barbara, so it's fairly pricey to live here.
Yes.
My family, I'm from Germany, so my family is all in Germany. I had nobody to support me, and we had to file bankruptcy. So he was still working all day, every day, trying to make as much as he could, and I could not get off the couch for 5 months.
Yes.
And then I had I had a literal physical breakdown and left my body and started, one night I was hovering under the ceiling, looking down on my body and was just ready to go, and was sent back into my body and really saw how I was allowing this negative energy to basically dictate my life.
Yeah.
And so from that moment on, I really committed to just learning about energy, learning about my own energy. And within a very short amount of time, my health completely recovered. We did divorce, but we knew from the beginning that we weren't kind of soulmates. We had our children together and we still co-parent beautifully, but I am now with my soulmate and divine partner and own a house in the Caribbean, live half the time there, live half the time in Santa Barbara, have served 5,000 people. And my clients have similar results because they have started to learn this energy stuff. Right?
Yes.
So, it's very different than focusing on affirmations or, mindset, like you were saying.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and people don't understand that absolutely every single thing is an energy signature. It's a mathematical energetic equation. The universe is entire energy. We are made up of that. And when we do tap into the right energy, the right frequency, we really can ride a wavelength that can really serve us.
Yeah.
And just like, music dips up and down, we're going to have the highs and the lows, which we're meant to have, but it's not getting stuck in any one of them. It's learning to ride that wave. And when we understand we're energetic beings, and we don't need to understand the electricity voltage that comes out of the wall or even measure our own energy. We know when we've stepped into that energy.
We know when we're in the flow.
Yeah,
we know when
exactly. But a lot of it is simply allowing, isn't it? You can't order or dictate, but you can do is surrender to receiving, surrender to allowing, and open up, because that energy is channeling down. And if you're crunched up, where does it go? Open up and allow that energy to come in, because now all of a sudden.
Yeah, and allowing, actually, a lot of people think allowing is, again, like just a concept. Allowing has a lot to do with doing.
Yes.
So if you want to be an Olympic ice skater, for you to allow to become that, you actually have to go buy a pair of skates and train every day and fall down a lot and build your muscles and.
Exactly. I mean, everything is you want to be that champion in your own life, and it's not going to get there virtually or by an app or an Amazon delivery. It's going to get there for you participating in your life, and the amount that you're going to participate is what the results are going to be.
Yeah, it really depends on the level of energy that you have, right? Oftentimes people ask me, like, how do you do all of this? Because I don't work that much. I work 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I have kids, and I have lots of other projects. I'm a dancer. I produced a GMO documentary, and people always ask, aren't you stressed? Like, you have so much. I'm like, no, because I have the energy to do it.
Yes. And also when you love what you do, right, that energy, it just becomes a natural flow.
Exactly.
I have a couple of little diseases, and one of them is the fatigue thing, because my physical battery never recharges properly, and so you get very overwhelmed. But when you love what you do, somehow that energy is there. I might collapse later, but the power is there at that time. And and I think that's really, really important, is don't go and do just because you're good at doing it. Go and do something you really love to do, that you're passionate about, and you will find your energy. You will find that frequency. And it's, step away from something that is just, I'm very good at it, that's the reason why I do it, but I'm not really invested. Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a drain. And so my work really has evolved from just the trauma healing to what I call now helping people to develop their pleasure IQ, which is what you just talked about. The ability to allow yourself pleasure in all areas of your life. So creating work that you love, allowing yourself to, have a work situation where you feel pleasure and fun. Same with your relationships, same with your body, you know, in all areas of your life.
Yeah.
And it's a skill, you know, for
Yes,
people to
I think
see.
people have forgotten the art of play. I mean, look at children and how productive they are when they're playing.
And the
You
energy
know,
that they have.
yes, yes. You know, we go, oh, I'd like to tap into that. Well,
Oh,
if you step into play and you bring that play into something you do, you become more productive.
yes, totally. Yeah.
We seem to have forgotten to giving ourselves permission to play and just, you know,
Yeah.
have
And we
fun.
think we have to work hard, you know, since I've started working, since I've stopped working hard, I should say.
Yes,
When I
exactly.
was working hard, I was never making more than $10,000 a year, you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
now I've multi six figures a year by just playing. And I mean, I do work, you know, but
Yes, but you work productively. I mean, a lot
yeah,
again, people think that, oh, it's got to be there's so many hours a day of production you put in. No, you can put in half an hour,
yes,
and it'll be
and
an 8 hour thing. It's working smartly. It's working wisely.
exactly.
And again, if you love what you're doing, A, you're not working. B, you're going to be so much more productive. You're so much more aligned to that energy that's going to direct you where you need to go.
Exactly.
Because half of the time when you're doing something you don't like and it's hard to do, is this because you're going against the wind instead of with the wind? It's the
Exactly.
resistance. So when you step out of resistance and step into allowing, propel me where I need to go, all of a
Yeah.
sudden, feet are off the ground and off you go.
Yeah. And then you have the creative ideas, then you
Yes.
all of a sudden see like how you need to connect and who you need to connect with, and then you're in the flow.
I mean, we see very, very often people who have gone through a trauma that as they've come out of it, it's become their platform, it's become their voice. And, you know, people go, isn't this hard? Because, you know, you're telling your same story all the time, but they don't realize is the story itself, as far as the pain is being concerned, is spent. It's gone.
Yeah.
All you now is reciting an event without the attachment. And you're not reciting it for woe is me or pity. You're reciting it to say, this happened, this is what I did to get where I am today. So it's an empowerment thing. But a lot of people think you're just regurgitating, you know, the pain, but you've been through it.
Yeah, it's like literally like it's literally like sometimes I think that was really me, because I
Yeah.
went through, you know, 10 years of really severe eating disorders and a lot of struggle. And you know, my sexual abuse started when I was 3 and I didn't remember until I was 30.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yes.
okay, yeah, that was me, I guess.
Well, and the thing is, you know, I was, you know, raped when I was 14, but I knew what happened, right? So,
Yeah.
and it sent me off on a kind. I'm from the '70s too. Sexual liberation. It was
Yeah.
expected. You know, what's your hang up, man? You know,
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
doing it. But as a child, and then to suppress it, you know what was wrong as a child, and the only
Yeah.
way you could get through it was to completely switch it off. Then for it to come back and tap you on the shoulder or hit you with a cosmic 2x4 later on, and not understand why you're feeling the way you are, is a
Yeah.
much harder journey, but it's not one you can close the door on or ignore or go
Yeah.
away. You can't. It's going to
Yeah.
keep knocking at your door until you deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah, I never knew why I had the eating disorders. They started when
Right.
I was 10 and it never made any sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think, that's something we have to be aware of, don't we? If we're having tendencies or addictive nature, or we're reactionary, or we're angry, or we're suppressed, or something's going on, that isn't the problem. That is just the, you know, the
Symptom.
result of
Yeah.
what really is the deep problem. And we've really got to be willing to go and take that journey to look in and go, where does this stem from?
Yeah. And the beautiful thing, I don't know if you know family constellations, but it's actually one of the modalities that I use with people. I do retreats and they come, and you can literally do this within like 3 or 4 days and be completely healed. I mean, you know, be completely in wholeness and have it in a place where, like me, you're like, okay, this happened to me in the past, and have no more trigger
Yes,
around it. Basically, you're
exactly.
free from it. You
Yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
your
You're not
story.
free from what happened to you. What you are doing is free from the emotion attached
Exactly.
around what happened to
And the
you. And I think
trigger.
this is, you know, and what happened to you is you realize when you let go of the emotion to do with it, of I survived that. And so I am stronger now because I've survived it. So what else can I apply my strength to? Right?
Yeah.
It's when you're a victim to something that sometimes you don't know why you're a victim to, or you don't know how to let go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, that letting go. And it's very important that we do. We cannot carry this burden around with us. It's just going to weigh you down. And as you said, keep everybody down at a low energy and a low frequency. You know, we have to let it go, shake it off, take a deep breath, a good virtual shower, and off we go into a new life. And it is absolutely achievable.
Yeah. And you know, it's hard to do on your own. So that's why
Yes.
I love working in groups, and I'm really hoping that people will pick up the book, and maybe the book is structured so it's actually a 7-week journey. So I've always envisioned women getting together, or even maybe at shelters and transition houses, and so having groups where people just take themselves through, because it's so much easier when you do something like that together than when you do it on your own.
Yes, and if you're at home with young children, you've got friends, whether you've been through something or not, because every single one of us has. I wasn't sexually abused, or that didn't happen to me. Something has happened in your life that maybe you didn't know that's there. If you get the 7 of you together and say, we're going to read this book, we're going to support one another. One particular chapter might be heavier for someone than another, but now there is that sisterhood or brotherhood, and it's a camaraderie, it's a helping each other through it, and the strength that comes out of that is absolutely wonderful, because we're not meant to do it alone. It's so much harder to do it alone.
Yeah.
And we don't need to. We're not meant to be alone, right?
No, the empowered feminine actually knows that she's stronger when she allows support, and it's not a badge of honor that you can do it alone. That's
No.
the disempowered feminine that thinks it has to be like the masculine, has to be strong, and
Yes.
being strong means I can do it all by myself.
And you've always got the woman with the judgment, well, you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have done that. They're just not on the same vibration. Don't take it on. Find those vibrational sisters that are there, ready to play the right music with you, and then see what you create from it. So you do these retreats, you have this book, you have another book, I believe, as well. Would you tell everybody how they can get hold of you, what you're offering, and
Yes.
all of that?
So the book that we're talking about is Blossom 7 Steps to Sexual Healing. You can find that on Amazon and on my website, which is womenintheflow.com. It's womenintheflow, flow, FLOW.com. I do have a free Facebook group that is also on my website that you can click on, and it's also Women in the Flow. I do daily meditations and all kinds of supportive things. And then I do take women on different locations around the world. Beautiful, Bali, Mayan Riviera, warm, tropical.
Yes.
And we dive deep and do this kind of work in like a 3-4 day setting. And the retreats are actually all around my upcoming book, which is called The Pleasure IQ. So really helping to remove any kind of blocks that you have in regards to you allowing yourself to have pleasure in all areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And the sexual healing is a part of it. That is
Yes.
one of the steps that in releasing shame and guilt, and learning about the feminine and masculine pieces and within yourself, and integrating them, and then learning how to basically keep your vibration high.
Right.
Tools that you can use.
So obviously the 7 steps is something that somebody should do first, because again, some people just don't realize that there was something they went through, because they can't pinpoint it, or it's not as big as that person. But when you go through the book, you realize there is something there that you needed to let go, and then that will allow you to step then into the next book of actually understanding how to actually step into your pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for when somebody has been, just realizing that they've been sexually abused or just starting to heal, talking about pleasure is very scary.
Yes. You need to do the one before the other,
Yeah.
because we want you to get to the pleasure.
Blossom
But until you
first,
let
and
go of the
then
trauma, you're not going to be able to do it. So don't try. I'm going to jump into the pleasure. Now, I'm sorry, you've got to go do the other work first. That's what. And again, the retreats and the sisterhood, and having that support there in a nice setting, warm, inviting setting where you feel that you really can let go. Sometimes people find it very hard to do in their immediate arena.
Yeah, it's hard.
And the reason for retreats is that you're stepping out of your life, and then you're stepping into another zone where you can make that discovery safely. So retreats are very, very important and very, very beneficial. So can you give
I also wanted to say I have 2 free gifts on my website when people.
Oh, great!
One is basically the process that teaches them how to turn the lead, the negative frequency, into a positive one, which is really one of the most important things that you can ever learn, in my opinion. And then another process that teaches you how to find out what your true yes and no is. And so that's another really helpful tool. So even if you just went to my website and got those 2 tools and started really using them every day, your life would completely transform.
Wonderful.
And that's also at Women in the Flow.
Yeah. And I just like that title too, Women in the Flow. When women are actually in the flow, that vibrational flow, it's that we never walk down the street without gathering people along our way, come and join the flow, come with me.
Exactly.
And then you've just got this bustle of really happy women that are in a very positive vibration. And it just resonates out to everyone. Everyone, is just feels that great electricity and just wants to be a part of it. So
Yeah.
your happiness, your personal happiness is a part of the solution to the community and the world's problem.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So never, think it's being selfish. No, we need that kind of selfishness.
Yeah.
We
I
need
think
to
I
be
read
whole.
somewhere, if you actually get yourself to a level of 500, which is love,
Mm-hmm.
you counterbalance the negativity of, I think it's either 750,000 people or over 1 million.
Yeah.
One
Yes.
person.
Yes. Yes. So, as the Beach Boys said, those good vibrations thing,
Yeah.
and it's when you're in those good vibrations, that frequency is being sent out. It's the ripple effect that goes out. Somebody's feeling good over there and they're not sure why. They've just picked up your vibe, and then they go and embrace that and bring that energy to someone else. And this is the beautiful thing about the ripple effect. So if you want to see a better world, step into your better life, your better energy, and you're part of that solution, which is
Exactly.
so simple, isn't it?
Yeah. That's why I do what I do, because I do believe that there is a world, that there's enough for everybody. A world
Yes.
possible where there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, there is. And the higher we step into that vibration of love, it's kindness and caring and love, but that kindness and caring starts with you
Exactly.
stepping into your own love, and then you step into the love energy. And that doesn't mean that you ignore the wrongdoings or the things that are happening in the world. It's just that you choose then to feed it a different energy instead of feeding it the anger and the hate, which we know is counterproductive. So
Exactly.
step into your self-love. Go with the flow.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being with here today. I mean, it's a very important topic. I just had a show on this week with Me Too to do with men. What about men? Don't forget the guys. And, it's a very confusing time for them as well. And I think the more we talk about this, and that really the solution is, it's if you want to have a better dialogue with either or sex, it's you first got to have a better dialogue with yourself, don't you?
Yes.
And be vibrating on a different level, and that it precedes the conversation. It sets the platform in which to communicate with each other. So we don't have to make it complicated. We just have to step into self-love.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much, love, for being with us, and really have enjoyed this. And so to everyone else, I hope you've learned a lot from this today. Remember, it all starts from the inside out. Please love yourself, because that is what the world needs from you. And when you do, and you step into that frequency and that energy, you'll understand just how awesome you can be and how awesome life is. And remember, there's always someone there to help you on your way. So until next time, folks, bye for now.